Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I know this drives some people crazy, but I'm double checking my volume. Sometimes this volume will like reset, and I'll think that it's great, and then it'll be too low, and then everybody gets mad. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Before I get going, I want to remind you at the end of this video, we're going to be in the private group daixrp.com, and ETHgate is just a symptom of the corruption on both sides of the aisle in Washington D.C. And I'm going to show a clip that I would never show on YouTube, and I guess not even on XRP on X if I was there, but I will show it on daixrp.com. But besides that, case dismissed, and who better to deliver the news than the official cool guy of the Digital Asset Investor channel?
Gary, are you there?
He says, case over, thanks for playing, Gary. And what he's talking about is this. Just in, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission dropped charges against Ripple's CEO Brad Garlinghouse and Executive Chairman Chris Larson, but will continue pursuing damages against the company. So this is what CoinDesk has to do, because they want so bad you to continue to believe that there are potential bad things ahead for Ripple. They need you to think that because their precious Bitcoin might be threatened. So I needed to point that out. Now, Stuart Alderati, the SEC made a serious mistake going after Brad and Chris personally, and now they've capitulated, dismissing all charges against our executives. This is not a settlement. This is a surrender by the SEC. That is 3 consecutive wins for Ripple, including the July 13th decision ruling that as a matter of law, XRP is not a security. October 3rd decision denying the SEC's bid for interlocutory appeal. And now this, winning is what he's saying. Brad Garlinghouse says today is an even better day. Ripple 3, SEC 0. In all seriousness, Chris and I, in a case involving no claims of fraud or misrepresentations, were targeted by the SEC in a ruthless attempt to personally ruin us and the company so many have worked hard to build for over a decade. The SEC repeatedly kept its eye off the ball while secretly meeting with the likes of Sam Bankman-Fried. I love that shot across the bow. And we still, by the way, do not know. Nobody's telling us what Gary was meeting with Sam Bankman-Fried about. Failing again and again to protect U.S. consumers and businesses. How many millions of taxpayer dollars were wasted? Feels good to finally be vindicated. John Deaton says, as I said, the SEC was never going to take this to trial. They can't, folks. Think about this. In order to take this to trial, think about what the SEC had to do. They had to be willing for Ripple to call Bill Hinman to the stand. Maybe Stephen Narioff. How about them apples? Maybe some ETHgate stuff would really be introduced into evidence. I believe they might even be able to call one Vitalik Buterin or Joseph Lubin. Think he'd be grabbing his elbow in that deposition? I think so. Jeremy Hogan weighed in here. Being sued is not fun. It keeps you up at night. It's always in the back of your mind. So very happy for Brad and Chris, and that's enough for now. Okay, yes, this does make a full settlement much more likely, as the only legal question left is how big a check Ripple writes to the SEC. There, I said it. Are you happy now? Fred Rispoli weighs in. He's also an attorney. A lot of implications here. In quite a few ways, this litigation can still go. All bad for the SEC, and only a few somewhat bad for Ripple. Ripple needs a verbal breakdown, but here's a summary of my thoughts. First, is the dismissal SEC acknowledging just that its case against Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson was horseshit, or did it include the realization that the court no longer found the SEC credible in general? The former suggests lengthy, bitter briefing and remedy stage and an appeal. The latter suggests a final settlement at hand. Considering that, while I understand exactly how BG and Chris Larson felt while being sued and want to end it ASAP, it was crystal clear they would win the lawsuit and expose the SEC. So why agree to a voluntary dismiss, even with prejudice, without more? Makes me lean towards a prediction that a final settlement with Ripple is more likely option. While the letter states the parties are conferring on Remedy's briefing schedule, my guess is settlement amounts are flying back and forth between the lawyers as I type. Wow. And then Eleanor Terrett says that the SEC has declined comment. Now, I was lucky enough, XRP, the Standard Productions, did a Twitter Spaces on this whole thing. And I was lucky enough to capture a clip that I will play now. It's John Deaton and Jeremy Hogan weighing in on how they think that this thing is going to play out from here.
But what's going to happen is the next stage is going to be more litigation. It's going to be the penalty stage. And Ripple, for example, has $770 million judgment against them for institutional sales. You're going to see them argue to Judge Torres two things. One, that's not profit, and therefore legitimate business expenses must get reduced off that figure. They're also going to argue, and they can make the argument, that ODL transactions still should be exempt from the ruling. It's almost a way of getting her to modify the earlier decision to not include ODL sales, and they can argue that in the penalty phase. And so I'm confident that they're going to get the 770 down. The question is it going to be cut in half? Is it going to be cut more than half? But let's hear from others.
So, Jeremy, you just made a post not long ago talking about how emotionally taxing it is for someone to be sued by the government. And I want to know, how do you think Garlinghouse and Larson are feeling right now? And also, what are your thoughts on the implications of this ruling?
There's no other feeling like it in the world other than having a child is getting dropped from a lawsuit. I'm sure they're ecstatic right now. The thing that surprised me is that they just dismissed the case and that this wasn't a settlement. Absolutely a shocker for me. That never happens. I don't know how it played out, but I assume, and with SEC, it's hard to know because they don't act like a regular litigant, but I assume that the SEC went to the individual defendants and said, hey, we want to make this go away. What can we do? And so I'm assuming if that was what was proffered, Brad and Chris said, you can, take it and shove it and we'll see you at trial. And that's what led to this dismissal. So I think the SEC, overplayed its cards with how they charged this case. And I think they underestimated the resolve that Brad and Chris had. And also, I just think they underestimated how weak their case was going to turn out being. I mean, just the fact that up until 2018, employees of the SEC or employees at the SEC could actually trade XRP. And now you're saying that the two executives of the company that were doing the exact same things that SEC attorneys were doing were somehow intentionally breaking the law. It's just ridiculous. And, that was going to all come out at trial. So, I think they're feeling great. And I think that the SEC, realizes it made a mistake. Also, remember, what does this do now when, Chair Gensler comes out and says, well, it's all clear, there's no question as to the law about what's a security, what's not a security. And then, it comes down to proving that the court SEC backs off and dismisses the case.
Okay. Now, I'm now about to go into the group, and I want you to understand something, folks. It's DAIXRP.com. Let me make you understand something. you want to know just how bad the corruption in the United States of America is, and it's not one side, it's on both sides of the aisle. It's all of them. Not all. It's 80% of them, though. Well, there's a guy who helped during ETHgate. His name's Brian Costello, and he had a lot of the information about that country that starts with a C. He's like an expert in that country that starts with a C, 2 C's and the P. Well, he's being interviewed in this clip I'm about to show in the group, and let me tell you what, it is pure gold. And he calls out names, and it is, there's a reason I have this private group, and I'm about to go into it. So those of you who haven't joined yet, be sure and do it. It's very inexpensive, no big deal. DAIXRP.com. Here we go, private group. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that it looks like it's on like Donkey Kong, and Ripple keeps winning. Thanks for listening.